start on the second row. First seat, second. Dustin, here on the left.
Mark, Dustin DePierre, Indianapolis Star. You talked at the beginning of the series about just the respect you have for Rick Carlisle. Just what's it been like to kind of sit on the other end of the chessboard against him for 7 games?
Humbling. He's a great coach. Their team plays with a ruthlessly consistent identity. They really compete. They're never out of a game. They've done an unbelievable job collectively of building the team to the point where they can get to this point and perform the way they have in this point. And it's been the case, in the end. I mean, there's not a lot of nights where you feel like you're at an advantage from a coaching standpoint. There's great coaches in the league, and he's certainly right at the top of the list.
On your right, Nick.
Mark, you often talk about simplicity in your message and tactics. How key for you is it tomorrow that your guys are playing instinctually and not thinking here in a Game 7?
Critical. I think that's the deal. Is you want to be prepared. Certainly want to learn the lessons, get the game plan into the game, but not at the expense of aggressiveness, confidence, instincts. I think that's been a strength of ours this season. We certainly need to lean on that. We got to understand the work's done, and we got to trust that work. The muscle's built. We got to flex that muscle. That's what tomorrow will come down to for us.
Straight ahead, Barry.
Barry Trammell, Tulsa World. Mark, we talk about Game 7 pressure on players. How much pressure is there on coaches in general, you in particular, to make the right scheme adjustments, to make the right rotations, those kinds of things?
I always feel a ton of pressure, but the pressure is not external. It's not like a game circumstance. It's not a situation. It's the internal pressure of doing right by the players, serving the team, putting the team in the best possible position to be successful, especially this team. It's a group of guys that I love coaching, and so I feel a great sense of responsibility to them, a great sense of responsibility to the organization, the city. In every circumstance, though, that's a fire that keeps on burning regardless of circumstance.
Chris, on your right up front.
Mark, Chris Maddox, Sports Illustrated. There are a lot of statistics that explain the outcomes of the games in this series, but to follow up on something Nick asked, the intangibles seem to have had an impact on every one. The effort plays, playing with force, imposing your will. Is there any way that you can prepare your guys to win those types of battles, or you just have to hope that they come out with the requisite energy?
I mean, it's a contest of wills. I think the reason it's swung between the two teams is because these are two teams that have leaned on that heavily to get to this point. It's two teams where the whole is better than the sum of the parts. It's two teams that are highly competitive, two teams that play together. And so two teams that kind of rely on the same stuff for their success, that are squared off against each other. And so, you're not going to exist in the win column of that, on a possession or even obviously in a series for either team. And so I agree with you that those things have defined the games of the series. I think both teams understand that. Both teams are going to try to do that tomorrow, and the better team will win.
Jenny?
Hey, Mark. Jenny Carlson with the Oklahoman. I know you're acutely focused on what happens between the lines tomorrow, but Game 7s obviously have a lore in sports, and you long told us your sports history, you're a sports fan of many things. Kind of put us inside being involved in a Game 7 in a championship series, just your appreciation for that.
It's a privilege. It's a privilege for everybody that gets to participate. It's an unbelievable thing and an unbelievable experience. And both teams have earned the opportunity to experience that. And so we're going to enjoy it. We're going to throw our best punch, go out there and be who we are. But it's a privilege to play in a Game 7 of the NBA Finals. I mean, no one's skipping that in this whole thing. But once the ball goes up in the air, the game is still going to come down to the same things, and we've got to be able to focus on that, despite the fact that we're grateful for the opportunity.
Tim on the right, third row.
Tim Reynolds, AP. Mark, for a team that obviously plays very physical on the defensive end, you guys aren't afraid to foul. You don't go over the line either. You've got almost no techs all year. Shai got one for waving a towel in support of a teammate making his first basket, and
it was rescinded.
And it was rescinded.
For the record.
Is that Is it an organizational taproot, like we are just not going to get technical fouls, or is that just the way these guys are, that they're just not privy to going over that line?
Well, first of all, we're physical, but I think we've done a great job. There was a point in the season where our free throw differential was historically low, not only the lowest in the league, but lowest in the modern history of the NBA. And we really dug into that and tried to make sure that we were putting ourselves in more positions to get fouled with the force that we were playing with on offense, which I think has shown up in the playoffs. Dub specifically is a guy that's made huge jumps there. And then defensively, understanding legal and illegal physicality. We don't want to take illegal fouls. I want to be very clear on that. We want to play physically, but we want to play legal and not put our opponents on the line or in the bonus. As far as the technicals, we just try to. And it's not a thing we talk openly about. First of all, I respect the officials. I think our team respects the officials. We understand that that's an imperfect job. It's not going to be perfect. They're trying to get it right. And then we really try to just focus on what we can control, not because of anything other than that's the best pathway to play your best, and that's the best pathway to win. And so we have hopefully a culture of focusing on what we can control and blocking everything else out. And, Jenny mentioned Game 7s and the lore of that. The outcome of the game and the context of the game is outside of our control. In between the lines is inside our control. And the referees is in that category too. We can't control how they call the game and what they put a whistle on and what they don't. We can control a lot of other things in the game, and that's what we need to focus on.
We have time for Michael and John.
Michael Grange from Sportsnet in Toronto. There's not many guys on either side that have kind of played statistically to their season averages. I think obviously just the quality of the defense being played. But one guy is Pascal Siakam. Are you okay with that? And, is there any reason why he's been able to play to kind of his level? And do you need to get him off that if you're going to win Sunday?
I think it's all play. He's had some quiet games in the series, as all great players do in a playoff series, because you're playing against a great team. The deeper you go, the better the competition tends to be. And then you're playing against a great team over and over and over again, which is an experience you just are not getting in the regular season. And so there's no point in the regular season where you play a great team 7 straight times. And as a result of that, great players, great teams, they vacillate in and out of everything. To Chris's question with the intangibles, it's very hard to sustain the exact same level over and over and over again in a playoff series, which is why I think, some teams win games, they lose games, and some great players have really loud, great nights, and then they have quieter nights. So I think we've generally done a pretty good job in the series, and so is Indiana, and that's why it's 3-3, and now it just comes down to who plays better tomorrow.
John, last one, fourth row towards the middle.
Coach, why do you think that the much bigger difference between your wins and losses in this series has been on your offensive end of the floor, and not just shooting, but also turnovers, offensive rebounding, free throws?
Yeah, I think I'm not pointing out anything that's not obvious. Our defense has been more consistent in these playoffs, especially than our offense has. I think. Generally, offense is harder in the playoffs for everybody. The same is true for Indiana in this series. Their offense is not where it was in the regular season or even earlier in the playoffs. I think it's just harder to score when you play a team over and over and over again. We've got to continue to try to find solutions with what they're doing. We've done a good job of that. We were not great with that in Game 6, but we have another opportunity to do that tomorrow, and that's what we got to do if we want to win the game.
First question right here on the left.
Hey, Shai, why do you think home court advantages mattered so much to you guys during these playoffs?
The crowd is amazing. You're ultimately in your complete comfort zone. The flow of the day doesn't change. You're in your own bed. You have shoot around at your building. You eat your pregame meal from your chef or your whoever. So it's just it's very comfortable, the whole flow to the day. And then the crowd's behind you. They give you energy, whether you're up or down or whatever's going on in the night. So it's, it's an advantage. It's fun for sure.
Joel on the right.
Joel Lorenzi with the Oklahoma. Shai, I know this thing is sort of arbitrary, but people's definition of, adversity or their barometer for it has been, having to lose over and over in the playoffs. I mean, Boston is probably a prime example of how often they went so close to the finals and lost. I wonder how you view your team's adversity and, comparatively, why you think the adversity you've been through is maybe enough to get over the hump.
Yeah, I try not to compare as much as I can. Everybody's going through something. Everybody goes through a hurdle in life or in a career or in a season, like whatever it looks like. And everybody reacts and responds and feels different to them. So I try my best not to compare. But I think this group has done a really good job of learning the lessons through its adversity. And I think it's why we've gotten here, because we've taken them and gotten better from them and gotten better on the other side of them. And if we want to achieve our dream, we'll have to continue to do the same thing.
Chris, up front.
Shai, Chris Manick, Sports Illustrated. There's a lot of statistics that explain the outcomes of the games in this series, but a lot of it has come down to the intangibles, playing with force, imposing your will. How do you make sure that your team wins those battles, that you come out with the right kind of energy, the right kind of effort in Game 7?
It has to be an emphasis, has to be at the top of our mind. It has to be all we care about. And above all, we just have to want to do it. We just have to have a sense of urgency in that part of the game.
Jenny?
Shai, Jenny Carlson with the Oklahoman. You clearly have a great perspective on history of basketball in the league and just things that you've said over time. There's not been many Game 7s in the NBA Finals. I'm wondering, as you approach that, what that means for you personally to find yourself in a Game 7 in the Finals.
It's a really good opportunity, really exciting opportunity, like a dream come true. Above all, I try to look at it as like a blessing and an opportunity, and then go out there and try to be the best version of myself. I think that's what we need to do. So we have to do across the board. Don't try to do anything spectacular. Don't try to do anything that you haven't done before, or be less than what you've been. Just be who you are and what got you here.
Second row on the right.
Shai, Myron Patton, OKC Sports Radio. Game 7, everybody knows for the NBA championship, that's what that moment's about. You grew up watching basketball. But you guys have also had this moment, this deal about the next game, 0-0. How do you not let the moment overwhelm you, but at the same time kind of having that neutral that you guys have talked about all season? How do you balance both of those?
Yeah, I think through our experiences throughout the whole season and the postseason, no matter how big the moment or the game, it always comes down to the same things. When we go back and watch film or we go back and look at the numbers from the game, it always goes back to the things that we know we can control every night. And when we do those things, we look like a pretty good team. And when we don't do those things, we look like a bad team. And I think learning that and understanding that throughout the season and the postseason is going to help us tomorrow.
Over here on the left.
Guilherme Giovannoni from ESPN Brazil. Coach Mark Daigneault said that the offense has been inconsistently, not moving the ball well. Do you think that's a thing that you guys can improve to win the Game 7?
Yeah, we have to. We have to improve on both ends of the floor if we want to win tomorrow. But yeah, we obviously have to get better offensively. Last game clearly was not good enough and not going to cut it, and we know that. And yeah, we watch film for those type of things. You have games like that. Now it sucks to have it at that stage, obviously, but yeah, we know we have to be better for sure.
Standing on the right.
Shai, Maynor Castillo desde la cancha. Everybody knows what you're going to do. Take a couple of dribblers, create space, and take the meeting. Why they can't stop you? The Indiana Pacers can't stop you to do that.
I work really hard. I use all my games and all my experiences to get better throughout the season. And I've developed, I guess, a skill set that works for me, and I try to go out there and do it every night.
Vince on the right.
Shai, Vince Goodwill, Yahoo Sports. There's been a lot of emotional momentum swings throughout the course of this series on both ends, with Game 7 being the highest of the high. How do you keep the team's emotions from not spilling over, from maybe those swings not being so, vast?
We do a really good job of like plugging out of our emotions and viewing the game and the opportunity the right way. So I honestly don't feel like I have to do too much with this group. They do a really good job of putting the team first above their individual emotions or goals or whatever it may be, and getting done what needs to get done. And I think that's why we've gotten here. So I don't think I have to do anything special because of the stage. We just have to be who we've been all year and use the muscles that we've trained all year.
Tim on the right.
Tim Reynolds with the AP. Shai, in your 7 years, there's only like two guys that have played as many minutes with fewer techs than you've gotten. Drew and Harrison Barnes, I think, is the other. Have you always been that way? Like you just don't go over the line. Have you always been that way, or was that a lesson you had to learn to not go too far?
Yeah, I was hot-headed as a kid. And then as I've grown, I've just understood that getting too high or getting too low, especially in competition, doesn't really help me for sure. So I try to be as even-keeled as possible. And the way I see it, Texas points, and I don't ever want to give the team points because I can't control my emotions. So I just control them. It's that simple to me. Yep.
Dustin, last one here on the left.
Shai, Dustin DePierac, Indianapolis Star. I know you've been asked about this matchup a few times in this series, but just what has it been like going up against somebody that you know as well as you do in Andrew Nembhard, and what have you sort of learned about him as a defender over the course of this that you didn't know already from all the times that you had played against him?
Yeah, it's been really fun. I haven't learned anything new. I've known how good of a player he was and defender he was playing with them for all these years. And tomorrow should be even more fun for sure.
We'll go Michael right in the front on one, third row.
Hey, Jalen, Michael Grange from Rogers Sportsnet in Toronto. You've matched up a little bit with Pascal Siakam off and on through this series. What makes him a tough cover? What have you kind of come to appreciate that maybe you didn't know from this kind of repeated exposure?
I wouldn't say I learned anything new except when you don't guard somebody all season, you kind of figure things out. But he's physical, he's skilled. When you put those two things together, it's hard to deal with for sure. And I think the biggest thing for me was he was taller than I thought coming into the NBA, I guess. That's not really a shock now, but just like that, when you're tall, physical, and obviously when you've been through this finals process a couple times, just the playoffs of your career, you get better, and a lot of moments don't really rattle you. So he's been a tough cover, but it's been really fun to go up against him every game and, kind of have that battle.
Barry?
Yeah, Barry Trammell, Tulsa World. Coming in, everybody often talked about lack of deep playoff experience by you guys, but the biggest mismatch in experience is on the coaching bench with Carlisle versus Mark. How do you feel like he's held up? What have you liked during this playoff run that you've seen from him? And how much pressure is on him to coach well in a Game 7?
I have very mixed thoughts about this question. I don't ever worry about Mark not being prepared for a moment. The way he attacks basketball from a coaching standpoint is the same way I approach basketball, which is why we have a lot of respect for each other. So I'm not too worried about the experience there. Obviously, Rick is another great, probably Hall of Fame coach. So I think Mark's also getting better coaching against him the same way we would as we get deeper into this run. And I feel just from a playoffs, lack of deep finals experience, we were probably about as deep into the finals as you can get, a Game 7. So I'm never worried about Mark and what's going on with him. And at the end of the day, Mark is not going to have to make shots on Sunday, so it's more about how we can carry out his game plan and do that.
Jenny?
Hey, Jalen, Jenny Carlson with the Oklahoman. You guys played a Game 7 a month ago against Denver, and you told us afterwards you didn't sleep very much the night before. But I'm wondering, what did you learn from that Game 7 experience? So many of you don't have Game 7 experiences. I know this is a whole other level, but what did you learn from that, and what do you hope translates tomorrow?
Try and go to bed a little earlier. The other part, too, is just like you can't really the swings of a game, I feel like in a Game 7 feel so much louder than they do in any other game, except maybe apart from like an elimination game. I feel like tomorrow they'll feel a little different too, just because obviously it's the last game of the season. This is for the championship. So I think it's just what Game 7 taught me for Denver is just like the swings. Like 3 feels like you're down 10. You know what I mean? 1 feels like you're down 5. Like that's just like the swing of the game, and what's going on feels much larger. So it's just kind of about like honing in your emotion, and like understanding the state of the game is big for Game 7.
Fourth row on the right, Vince.
Jalen, Vince Goodwill, Yahoo Sports. I think the last time the NBA had a Game 7 in the finals, you might have been 14 years old, 15 years old in 2016. Being in your third year, I'm sure there's so many more experiences you have yet to experience, but can you appreciate like that this is going down in history, that win or lose, you're a part of NBA lore? I think there's only been 5 Game 7s in the past 35 years.
Yeah, it sucks. I probably can't appreciate it until I get the outcome I want. So it's cool though. Somewhere down the line, win or lose, it'll be cool to have your name etched in history, regardless of what's going on. So I think that's cool. But right now, like it's very difficult to look into that. But I'm also grateful for the opportunity. That's one thing I can say is like throughout the whole entire thing, you always have to like remain grateful for where you are, because there's a lot of NBA players that'll trade their spot with me right now. So that's how I look at it. But as far as like being in history, like I want to be on the good side of that for sure.
Nick, on the right.
Mark talks a lot about trying to keep things straightforward and simple so that you're not, as a team, you guys aren't thinking out there, you're playing instinctually and with great force. Can you maybe take me inside a little bit about how you guys have gone about that over time, and obviously need to have that again tomorrow?
Yeah, over time we've had a good process about it. We've had some slippage. You're trying to get back to that, but tomorrow it's kind of like a do or die situation, so I don't doubt that we won't have that. But I think we've done a good job just building the muscle. We've talked about that all year. In those games that people don't think matter, when you're playing late December, on a Tuesday night, and you're not even on TV, like those games, the ones where you can really build a habit there. I think we've done a good job of that all year, and we'll have to do it one more time.
Second row on the right.
Hey, Jalen, draftados from Spain. As Vincent said, you were like 15 years old when the last Game 7 of the finals was played. I was just wondering, what do you remember from those games, if you do? And what you remember from those games gets you excited about playing tomorrow?
Who was in the finals then?
Cavs Warriors.
Bro, I don't even remember that, to be honest. Like, 15, I was probably like an AAU tournament or something playing. I remember like the biggest thing from the finals is like I remember a lot of the stuff surrounding it. Like I don't remember the actual games. When you're 15, like I feel like you miss a lot of like what's going on. Like you're more worried about like your favorite player. Like Kobe wasn't playing, so I didn't really care. But I just remember like the buzz and just like everybody kind of choosing a side, which is why I think it's really cool that I've had this experience like Oklahoma, where you're driving down the city and there's paintings of Thunder Up, and like I'm walking to like Target and there's people face painted, and the game's not even today, and like you can see the bars are full every game, and we're packing out the stadium while we're not here. Like that's a lot of the stuff that I'll really remember. That's a lot of the stuff I remember like during that run, like during that finals time.
Left side, towards the center. Go ahead.
Michael Martin, Let's Talk Thunder. Dub, I'd imagine that sort of through the course of your career, when you had that growth spurt, you had to adjust your game to that. And then again in the NBA, once you sort of put on all that muscle to your frame. Wanted to ask, is this the best you felt in terms of like the balance of your actual basketball game and your physique that you've had?
My physique for sure. Basketball-wise, yeah. I think I just feel myself getting better throughout like the finals and just like throughout the year, which is always like a good feeling. Even when I like struggled, like there's been like for me at least, there's been a lot of like positivity behind like how I've been struggling and like when that was. So I just think throughout the year I've just gotten way better. But physically, yeah, I feel really good. Just kind of lets me know like what I did last summer to get my body in shape for this, and what I've been able to do to maintain it throughout the year has been a big one. So I've been good at that.
Tim, last question here on the left.
Deb, you mentioned the face painting fans and all that kind of stuff. You've compared it to like a high school football powerhouse type of feel. Well, what's the feeling like when the like Game 7 starting the last time you had one here, just with the crowd and the atmosphere, and what do you anticipate for tomorrow?
It makes like the hair on your arms stand up a little bit. Like it's so like you're like anxious going into it. It's honestly like it's a little like indescribable because it's like I haven't, and it's hard to give like a good answer because this Game 7 is going to be completely different from the last one we played in. But from like a fan perspective, I can't imagine it won't be anything short of like incredibly loud. Obviously, they're going to be anxious too. Like we're very close to, finishing the job, but very close doesn't get you far unless you finish it. But I am excited just to see like how much the city shows out and like. I don't know. Paycom will obviously have a very different energy than it's probably ever had, so I'm excited for that.
Thanks, Jalen.
Cool.